Bhushan, a friend, motivator, and guide to IAS aspirant. A friend, motivator, and guide to IAS aspirant, international motivational speaker, leadership trainer, CEO, coach, political strategist, and policy advisor. The essence of deception is destruction. The essence of deception is destruction. Distracting the people you want to deceive gives you the time and space to do something. To do something they won't notice. An act of kindness, generosity, or honesty is often most powerful form of destruction because it disarms other people's suspicion. It turns them into children eagerly lapping up in kind of affectionate gesture. Learn to give before you take. Learn to give before you take. Learn to give before you take. This quote I have taken from the 48 Laws of Power written by Richard Robert Greene. Maldives defends ties with India. This fact, the news taken from the Hindu newspaper, Maldives defends ties with India. Government says critics can't stomach strengthening relation between the two sides. Apparently responding to the growing anti-India refrain from the political opposition in the Maldives, Foreign Minister Abdullah has said that unable to stomach the strengthening bilateral ties were resorting to such criticism. Speaking at an event to launch a street lighting project supported by India, the foreign minister said this connection is with the people of the two countries, a connection indicating a heart-to-heart relationship. We acknowledge that. His remarks come at a time when the jailed former President Abdullah Yamin led Progressive Party of the Maldives People's National Congress combined has been protesting foreign military presence in Maldives soil. Following a recent agitation by a group of youth, the PNC said it was appalled by police crackdown and indiscriminate mass arrest at peaceful motorbike rally. Amid speculations among the section that Indian military might have arrived to Hanimadhu in Dhalud Atoll. In addition to Indian officials, there are already in Maldives to operate the helicopters gifted to Maldives National Defense Force by Indian military. The Chief of Defense Force, Major General Abdullah Shamal, has asserted that no foreign armed forces are present in the Maldives. The next most important news is new parliament project. Tata's 861 crore bid is lowest. Larsen and Turbo Limited submits a bid to 865 crore. Tata Projects Limited financial bid of 861.9 crore for the construction and 5-year maintenance contract of a new parliament building was to the lowest cost of two bids opened by the Central Public Works Department CPWD on Wednesday, according to the bid documents. After seeking pre-qualification bids in which 7 companies applied, the CPWD in June narrowed the field to 3 potential bidders, gave them till 3 p.m. on Wednesday to submit their bids. While the Tata bid was 8.4% less than the CPW estimated 940 crore, Larsen and Turbo Limited submitted 865 crore, which was 8.07 less than estimated cost. The third bidder, Saprupji Palonji and Company Limited, did not submit its bid by the deadline, an official of the Housing and Urban Affairs Ministry said. The next important news is India's presence at Afghan talks vital. India's presence at Afghan talks vital. US Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad met Jaishankar and Ajit Doval for 90-minute discussion. The intra-Afghan negotiation underway in the Doha are an Afghan-led and Afghan-owned process at last. US Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad said, calling India's decision to take part in the event involving the Taliban an important step. However, he said neither the US nor India can impose what political system Afghan representative chose to adopt after the talks, nor is yet certain that the start of the talks will see the declaration of ceasefire. So India has always said there should be an Afghan-owned and Afghan-led process, and External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar repeated that. Mr. Khalilzad said in an exclusive interview with the Hindu newspaper shortly after his visit to New Delhi Tuesday. You could say that before it was American-led Afghan process, but now it is an Afghan-led and Afghan-owned process with the delegations sitting across the table from each other without a foreign sitting in the room for the first time. These groups of warning parties are now talking with each other to negotiate a roadmap for the future of their country. The next important news is to the brink and back in Ladakh. To the brink and the back in Ladakh. At the heart of China's actions lies in historical strategy that India needs to be addressed with a great tact. Realistic within. India has always argued that People's Republic of China (PRC) only deals in the currency of power and brushes aside liberal and moralistic underpinnings to negotiate in every realm. Whether the recent talks between India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi will yield any major defense on whether it will be another elaborate spokesperson led by China is anybody's guess. A recent editorial in the pro-government Global Times in Beijing has put out clarion call for the people of China to be prepared for war with neighbors, without specifically mentioning India. Presently, this was put out after S. Jaishankar Wang Yi talks and included a reference to the moral conduct of war. Not often have the Indians realized that at the heart of the PRC strategy to manage its periphery was another fault line in history, often referred to as Mao five-finger strategy. Mao's five-finger strategy. Mao five-finger strategy. The strategy was continuously sought to reassert control over the Arunachal Pradesh, or what the PRC called Southern Tibet, Bhutan, Sikkim, Nepal, and Ladakh. Southern Tibet, Bhutan, Sikkim, Nepal, and Ladakh. That is the five-finger. As a part of an effort to be secure China's periphery, this has turned into a Chinese obsession that has destabilized South Asia. It can now be argued that despite being surprised and having had to reckon with a successful PLA operation to change the status quo in the several pockets across the LAC in Ladakh, India's refusal to buckle under pressure has been PLA and Xi Jinping much to think of. The spontaneous and violent response of the Indian Army during the Galwan clash of June 15 and the well-planned and executed operation to be tactically occupy important heights on both the northern and southern banks of Pyongyang Tho have demonstrated a wide spectrum of capability and intent on India's part. While these have not been resulted in any gains on the ground, the PLA remains entrenched in the great areas and has been forced to pause and mull over its future action on the ground, giving in India time to build up for the winter and prepare for the long haul. Some analysis believe that an escalation of some kind seems inevitable, and that is imperative that the series of meetings in the various levels do not infuse a sense of hope that rapprochement is around the corner unless it is accompanied by a visible change on the ground. Others who have served in the area and observed the trajectory of the PLA build-up argue that there is no way that the deployment, dense as they may be, are enough to support even a localized skirmish. Adding to the difficulties of the PLA in the army operations in the widely accepted military proposition that a field tax to dislodge entrenched defenders from the kind of heights now occupied by the Indian Army would require overwhelming force ratios of about 9:1. If one looks back at the heavy losses suffered by Indian Army during their initial assault in the Kargil conflict, one may wonder whether the PLA has the appetite to deal with such losses. So the next important news is new order in West Asia. Accords between Arab states and Israel can't bring peace without solving the Palestine issue. The so-called Abraham Accords, signed in the White House on the Tuesday by UAE, Bahrain, and Israel, under US President Donald Trump's mediation, clearly mark a new beginning in the relation between the Sunni-ruled Gulf Kingdom and the Jewish state. Under the agreement, UAE and Bahrain would normalize ties with Israel heralding better economic, political, and security engagement. More Arab countries are expected to follow suit, says US and Israel official. The agreements are backing of the Saudi Arabia, arguably the most influential Arab power, and close ally to the UAE in Bahrain, the ailing octogenarian rule of the kingdom. Salman bin Abdulaziz is trading cautiously for now, but Riyadh has opened its airspace for commercial flights between UAE and Israel. The Accord, the first between Israel and Arab countries since 1994 Jordan-Israel peace treaty, also suffer a true rare diplomatic with Mr. Trump, whose other foreign policy bets, be it Iran or North Korea, were either disastrous or stagnant. With less than 50 days to go before the re-election bid, he has called the agreements the new dawn of new Middle East, the new dawn of new Middle East, the new dawn of the new Middle East, the new dawn of new Middle East. And the last important is Russia inks pact to test supply Sputnik V vaccine to India. Agreement with Dr. Reddy's Laboratories doesn't include its manufacture. The Russia Direct Investment Fund, which is piloting Russia's Sputnik V candidate vaccine, currently in phase 3rd trial, has partnered with the Hyderabad-based Dr. Reddy's Laboratories to test and subject to regulatory approvals in India supply 100 million doses of the vaccine. G.V. Prasad, co-chairman and the managing director, Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, said in a joint statement with RDIF, "We are pleased to partner with RDIF to bring the vaccine to India. The phase 1 and 2 results have shown promise, and we will be conducting phase 3 trials in India to meet the requirements of the Indian regulators. Sputnik V vaccine could provide a credible option in our fight against COVID-19 in India." So this is the most important news. Now a little think about from the M. Lakshmikant book. Lakshmikant book. Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand and Jharkhand. Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand and Jharkhand. In 2000, 3 more new states of Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand and Jharkhand 2000 were created of territories of Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar respectively. These become the 26th, 27th, 28th state. 26th state is Chhattisgarh, 26th state is Chhattisgarh, 27th state is Uttarakhand, 27th state is Uttarakhand, 27th state is Uttarakhand, 28th state is Jharkhand, 28th state is Jharkhand, 29th state is Telangana, 29th state is Telangana, 29th state is Telangana, Chhattisgarh 26, Uttarakhand 27, Jharkhand 28, Telangana 28, 29. Thank you.